If he drank vinegar diluted with water, he is liable. So, in the Rambam at the bottom of the Peirush it says because you can drink it. Koisis pilpulin. Somebody chews peppers, zangov or cinnamon, yovish, which is dried, poto, and things like that. He is not liable. Rashi in Brochus 36a explains that anything that's eaten not in the normal fashion is called kesiso. Ochal zangvil rotov chayev. But if he ate cinnamon which was made wet, then you can eat it that way. This is in Yuma 81b Amarova. That if he ate it on Yom Kippur, he's poter. But this is pilpul by pepper and also by cinnamon. So the Gemara says from a brisa that says that you can eat pilpul, and the answer is here's talking where it's fresh and therefore can be eaten. It still has moisture. But Rambam is talking about where they're dry and they can't be eaten at all. The Maggid Mishnah questions, seen from the Gemara, that fresh peppers can be eaten. You're liable for them. In Hilchos Brochus, the Rambam writes that you make a broch on the pilpulin that are wet, very adomo. And so we see that if you make a broch, obviously it's edible. And why doesn't he mention the Rambam only cinnamon, which is not soft? Therefore, he writes that you have to say in the Rambam that it doesn't refer only to cinnamon; it means both of them. But it also includes peppers. And so the Mechaber in Siman 6:12 codifies the Halacha that if you chew on Yom Kippur either peppers or cinnamon which are dry, then you are not liable because it's not considered edible. If they are fresh, then you are liable. So you see, you learn like the Maggid Mishnah that there's no differentiation between peppers or cinnamon. Both of them, if they're dry, one is not liable, although it's forbidden, and if they're wet, then they are liable. Ochal alig fanim poto. If he ate the leaves of a vine, a grapevine, because they're not they're not edible. Rae Gann adds that it doesn't matter only from a grapevine. Any leaves are not something that a person can eat. But luloli gefanim chayev, and that which is called the leaves of a palm tree, they are liable. Ve'eluhein luloli gefanim. The Rambam explains what are these palm fronds. Kol shelilavlavoi be'eretz Yisrael merosh Hashanah livlevu be'eretz Yisrael merosh Hashanah v'ad Yom HaKippurim, that they sprouted in Eretz Yisrael from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur, and therefore we call them now palm hearts. Why Be'eretz Yisrael? Rae Gann says because Yisrael has its fruit the earlier than other lands. Therefore, there are vineyards that start already in Rosh Hashanah. However, in the other countries, it's not the case. Now, it could be that the text of the Rambam was in the Gemara that says Eretz Yisrael, and he includes that even other lands, there are times that you'll find also at this period of time that they have begun to sprout forth fronds, and he saw this many times, so he writes. Yes, Halzeh, even more so, if more time went by, then they've turned into something inedible. They're like wood from the grapevines, and therefore they are potter. This is anything that further, when it first comes out, it's edible, and afterwards it becomes something that's edible. So when it's edible, he's liable for chorus. If it's not edible, then he would be potter from chorus. Rae Gann writes, everything that says potter in this halacha means from a punishment, but there's a forbiddenness. The source of his words are found in Yuma. Yitzchak Magdala writes would make. He clarifies what is lulove kfanim, the sprouts of of grapevines, anything that starts from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur. Because Rav Kahana's 30 days. And since the Gemara brings a proof from Yitzchak Magdolo, the Rambam Paskins codifies the Halacha only if it started from Rosh Hashanah till Yom Kippur. But if it's before Rosh Hashanah, then by that time of Yom Kippur it will already be hard like a piece of wood, and it cannot be eaten. Shagas Aliyah brings this disagreement between the Rambam and the Rav Yo that we mentioned earlier in Halacha Hey, and he writes that Rav Yo has the text of the Gemara: if he drank a lot, even on live vinegar that has not been diluted, he's liable for chorus. And therefore, the difference between vinegar to other liquids, which can be drunk, is that in every liquid, the measure is as much as it goes into his mouth, which is a revius. But by vinegar, which is live, you need a larger measure. Therefore, you can't question from Rav Gidl, because the reason of live vinegar is forbidden to begin with, because even though he needs a larger measure, but chatzi shiur, even a half a measure, is forbidden min haTorah, and therefore, if he'll drink a lot, he will be liable for chorus. Therefore, when he drinks a little bit, he's liable min haTorah. But a very little bit of live vinegar that you can't drink it, according to the Rav Yo, even on that little bit, there's a forbiddenness because it's half or a partial measure of that which is also min haTorah. Therefore, the entire machlokes the Rambam Rav Yo, according to the Shagas Aliyah, is how we edit the Gemara, the text. The Rambam did not have a text that has to do with a lot or a little bit, and from that, the disagreement is whether it's forbidden to begin with by food and drink and food which are not edible. And he writes that the main halacha is if one is forbidden to begin with to eat and drink foods that are not edible. And he goes with the opinion of the Rambam that you can't do so even though one is not liable for doing so. The Rav Yo permits it because I'm Sochim 54b. He writes that all of that which is forbidden in the Torah, you don't get malchus for it, only the way it's usually customarily eaten, except for live fats, where one is potter. And Mordechai writes in the name of Rav Yo that all the Yisur Shabbat Torah, one can eat them not in the natural fashion and benefit from them. And every place where it says potter, it means actually means that you can begin to eat it without any reason not to, except from Shabbos where it says potter, it means potter will also. Potter is only used as a word regarding the activities of Shabbos which are forbidden, and there they say it's potter but of Osor. Therefore, when it comes to eating on Yom Kippur, the Rav Yo permits, according to him, when it says potter, you can even begin to eat it to begin with. Taisus and the Rajva and the Ra and the Ritva say that one is potter. It says when you don't eat it in natural fashion, it means it's potter, forbidden, but it's not. There is no penalty, but it's forbidden. According to them, it says by liquids and by foods that they're not able to be eaten, one is potter, one is, but it's still also like the Rambam, and therefore the Shagas Aliyah is of the opinion that the Rambam understood that this is the way the halacha is, and that is the opinion of most of the Rishonim. Now, if on Yom Kippur one can eat it something not in its natural way, Shagas Aliyah goes on and explains there is in this a great lengthy discussion in the later commentaries. We'll just mention that Even so, when you eat it not the way it's normally eaten, or not the way it's normally benefited from, it's forbidden. According to the Mishnah Lamelech, the intent that it's forbidden in Torah is because it's just like a half a shiur. Is not found in the Magen Mishnah that when he eats it in a fashion which is not normal, it's considered like a half a shiur. That's what we mentioned earlier in Halacha Hey for the Pri Megadim. It could be that's also in Torah, foods that cannot be eaten and liquids that cannot be drunk, like a half a shiur, because it's not the normal way of eating it. But even when he doesn't eat it, it's forbidden in Torah, like a chatzi shiur. It's still forbidden because it's a chatzi shiur, and that's why it is forbidden.